left.
What the hell was that? Oh, yeah!
What the fuck are you talking about?
What's up, fam? Welcome back to another episode of the Weekly Roundup. I'm your host, Steve Rochelle, as always, being joined here by Mr. Zach Burr. Zach, how we doing, my friend? How you doing this afternoon? We're back.
I didn't know what happened to you, man. Like, I was missing my partner in crime. I had to get rebellious on other shows in your absence, and it just wasn't the same.
I see you whoring yourself out. But, had some, gave myself a technological vacation. And
technical difficulty.
Then we had an actual vacation here for the holidays, just, giving a little break here. But we're back. We're going to be talking, obviously we're going to be talking some football. We're going to be joined by Elise Reed, CFFC strawweight champion. We're going to be throwing a little Sixers talk in here. So definitely looking forward to getting into it, but let's not forget, our sponsor, our doc, make him your doc, Dr. Paul Vidal, Specialized Physical Therapy LLC, Burlington, Cherry Hill locations in New Jersey. Make sure you check him out on the web, specializedphysicaltherapy.com. And want to really just get right into it and get into the poll questions and seeing what everyone what everyone's thoughts on it is tonight, and I want to get everyone's thoughts on whether you think that the season was this NFL season in general was just a disaster, regardless if we're talking about the Eagles' perspective, just in general. Want to get everyone's thoughts on that and weigh in on that. And as we get into that, let's not forget about that whole question is also sponsored by our guys over at Ambuck Services. That's AMBUCK Services. The gutter experts. Make sure that you got anything around the house, gutter guards, anything like that. Hit them up there in South Jersey. That's Ambuck Services. Let me hear your guys' thoughts. What do you think? What do you think, man? As we're going to get into this, what are your thoughts on the season? Just being a disaster in general. As we get into it, the NFL probably had the most time to prepare for pandemic sports, and we've seen a lot of players opt out. We've seen here in our own backyard, the New York Jets completely fall apart. The Titans are what they are. I mean, the Texans, rather. I want to say the Titans. And look like some teams are being catered to a little bit. The Pittsburgh Steelers got bent over more than a handful of times this season. And if you're the Cleveland Browns too, like basically losing your whole wide receiver core, like as you're in the middle of a playoff rush, right there, where obviously they probably should have moved that game. They don't. It is what it is, and they're going to be they got a tough fight with that Steelers matchup. I know it's not going to be a little bit less desired because some players aren't going to be playing. We're already seeing that here in Philadelphia. But what are your thoughts there, Zach? Is this season a disaster? Regardless, take the Philadelphia Eagles out of the equation. Just take your Eagles hat. Just take your Eagles hat off for a second. We're talking about in general.
In general,
not just our own personal pain and woes. We're gonna spit some venom on this team in a few minutes, as it is anyways. Like I said, it's been a few weeks since me and you had a chance to kind of converse and talk to the people. So, what are your thoughts on this league season as we're going into the last one here, the last week? What was it a success? Was it a disaster? What are your overall thoughts?
If you're making me taking the Eagles out of it, it's definitely not disastrous. Like, what was disastrous about it? Like, 2020 as a whole was disastrous. But, like, the NFL season, I mean, we've had, like, a lot of fun up and down moments in an NFL season, just like we always do. I wouldn't call it disastrous. Now, the Eagles season's been disastrous, but I actually like the fact that it's been disastrous. Like, I'm not mad about it. So, like, I don't know. If you asked me, maybe if you asked me if was the Eagles season disastrous, I said, no, the Eagles season was awesome because we might finally see some changes. We're already seeing it. Jim Schwartz got fired. So Does that happen if you go to the playoffs and have a really good
He
year?
didn't get fired. Oh, did he get fired?
Or they've announced that he won't be back next year. Whatever the fucking.
We'll get into that. We'll get into that in a few minutes. Come on.
Greg, you know what? Greg, you can tune into my show, yet you live down here in Florida now, and you can't even pick up a phone and call me and be like, "Oh man, we live like 45 minutes away from each other. Let's get together and do something." You're a problem. That's fraudulent stuff right there. Fraudulent stuff. Go listen to my show, but you can't even text him. Text a brother. Like you can't.
Yeah,
you can't text the A2D family.
To answer your question, I do not see any Saturday games on the schedule. There, Mr. Burr. I do not see any Saturday games. So no, we don't. It doesn't look like we're enjoying that right now.
Oh yeah, I looked. I figured that out because I looked at it with my TV guide and saw that there was no games. So. It is what it is.
I'm watching and speaking of that Cleveland-Pittsburgh matchup, how do you think that playing out? Do you see them getting it? Do you see the Browns still getting into the playoffs regardless?
Sure. Yeah, they'll find a way to win against Mason Rudolph. Listen, I don't care how many players the Steelers are sitting, okay? Mason Rudolph stinks. They'd be better with Rudolph the Red-Nosed Reindeer playing quarterback, okay? Like, seriously. Merry Christmas, Happy New Year, everybody. But, see, this is the type of stuff that we were missing because we couldn't do shows leading up to Christmas, and I had all types of fun, puns and wordplay set up for it, Steven, and you fucked it all up. It's your fault.
Yeah, it's my fault. I'll take the hit for that, brother. It's all right.
No, I mean, seriously, listen, and don't think that there's not some beef there still between the Browns and not really the Steelers, but particularly Mason Rudolph after everything that went down last year.
That's why I say that.
And that whole situation.
That one's going to be pretty interesting.
Yeah, I think there's some bad blood there, and I definitely think it's a game with that. Forget about Cleveland needing to win it to make the playoffs. I think it's just a little bit personal on their end too. Like they want to go in there and make a statement for two different reasons. You obviously need to go win the game to make the playoffs, but you also kind of want to smack them around a little bit with a quarterback that's playing that you really have a particular dislike for because of everything that went down between your best player and him last year.
Yeah, I know.
Tell me that they don't get a couple free shots at it that they might not take him.
We're already seeing the Twisted Tea memes and etc. with all that, so it's going to be.
I like the one I posted. Did you see the one I posted where it said the Steelers are getting? They have to decide this week whether they're going to start at quarterback a rapist or a racist. I thought that one was really fun. I was like, hey, this is savage. I shared that one and they even laughed at it. I was like, this is some good stuff here. That's golden.
Oh, Mr. Burr.
But the Ben Roethlisberger rape jokes, I guess, have gotten kind of old, right? Like we just beat a dead horse with that one.
Yeah, I think he's only the fact that everything's basically locked up on the Steelers' end.
Yeah, I mean, we're not playing for much.
I mean, that's the only reason why it's interesting.
What Cleveland's playing for.
Well, no, like I said, that's the only thing. It's interesting because of the simple fact that Ben's out and Mason's in, and the Cleveland has a little bit more to play for. So it's the only reason. I mean, how we can set the
if Roethlisberger was playing,
we can set the. Why can't that game get flexed out and the Eagles get left on the 1 o'clock? That makes more sense in my opinion.
I didn't understand that either. I didn't understand why we went to 8:20, but I guess the NFL knew something we didn't know. They're like, we cannot have Mason Rudolph starting in prime time. Just no. The last time that happened, oh yeah, he got smacked in the head with a helmet by the other team's best defensive player. But I mean, yeah, seriously, if Roethlisberger was playing, I actually would not like the Browns' chances at all. I would think, oh wow, they're really in some trouble here. But with Rudolph playing quarterback, and all the players the Steelers are sitting, I mean, they might be a worse football team than the Jets were last week. With Darnold and I mean, Darnold isn't good, but he's night and day difference between between him and Mason Rudolph. So I don't know. I think the Browns learned from last week. Like they knew they dropped the ball. Like even as unhealthy, they were missing receivers, all that. They still should have won that game and had a chance to win the game and didn't. they won't squander it this week. I mean, it might be a little ugly. They might win by a field goal or something. But, yeah, I just see Cleveland winning that game. You got much bigger problems if you lose a football game to Mason Rudolph.
Yeah, I know. But, I mean, it's definitely one you got to keep your eye out on there. I mean, I guess the other ones, Arizona and the Rams. I guess that's another fun one you're going to be looking at.
Yeah, I mean, those two teams have been so, like, hot and cold as of late. Like, what?
Yeah,
like,
but the Rams have
like,
a weird situation where Goff's injured. He's out with the thumb surgery and
thumb
all
injury,
that
right.
stuff. So they're kind of jockeying for one of those latest spots there. So I mean,
well, in Arizona, when Arizona beat us, you were looking at it and saying they're probably definitely going to the playoffs now, and now they're still in a position where, I mean, they're not locked in. Like, they've got to, like, those things that got to happen. They got to win that football game, all that. Like, they even get to the playoffs, correct?
I mean, it's rough, man. Like, they need help. It sucks when you put yourself in a situation where you find yourself needing help. Even Miami finds themselves in a situation now where they've been kind of bouncing around, and they've had
Miami, think about the situation they're in. They could make the playoffs and have the 3rd overall pick. I mean, that's like unheard of type stuff, the type of future that they've set themselves up for with some of the trades that they've made. That's already a good football team. Can you imagine the type of player that they could get with the 3rd overall pick?
They had to be an NFL doormat for the better part of the last 5 years.
That's what happens when you have poor leadership at the top, and it goes all the way to the bottom. But they finally nailed a hire. Brian Flores, to be honest, looks like the best Belichick disciple ever. I mean, at this point, we always talk shit about all these Belichick disciples that go out to become head coaches, and none of them really do anything. This dude looks legit. Like, he has built something in a short amount of time out there in Miami. Where I think if you're any organization in football, you're looking at what they did and say, damn, how do we do that? Like, how do we become that? They did that in 2.5, 3 years. That's like your new model for how you want to build a team in a hurry to become a contender. They've done it. I don't know. You ask me, as we get later into this conversation, later in the show, I don't think we're probably quite there yet. I don't want to jump too far ahead with you. But obviously, if we're getting into the conversation about what happens with the Eagles going forward and Howie and Doug Peterson and all that, like, there's organizations I'm looking at around the league saying, oh, like, they've figured it out a lot better than we have. You know what I mean? Like, we talked about the new norm and all that after winning the Super Bowl. We can think we had something figured out as far as building a culture and an organization. We don't have shit compared to some of these young, really, really good franchises. The Bills have a good foundation. The Dolphins have a really good foundation. It's like you're looking at some of those organizations and you're realizing just how far off we are. And, I don't want to sit here and continue to have that conversation. If it needs to be fixed, I want to fix it now. I don't care who we've got to fire. I don't care if we've got to blow the whole thing up. But I'm looking at organizations like that, and I'm watching them go in this direction while I continue to watch us go down. And that that can't continue. You've got to reverse that very quickly.
Well, I was on the New Year's roundtable. Christopher, I guess, missed that. Who was your crumb of the year? You weren't on it, so I was there. I got everyone else's take on that. Who was your crumb of the year, Zachary?
My crumb of the year. Oh man, there's a lot of them. Yeah,
I know.
And you just like spontaneously dropped it on me. Like, that's tough. Crumb of the year. Yeah. You'd have to let me think about that and maybe answer it like at the end of the show or something. Like, I got to have some time because that's when you think about it, that's an important question. Like, you can't just be like, I'll name anybody. Like, that's no. Like, if you're gonna name somebody to come in here, you better be like, you're gonna be fully committed to it. Like, I gotta be fully committed to whatever name I throw out there. So you gotta let me think about it for a little bit.
Oh well, no, I mean, like, I had quite a few of them. Like, I had a personal one, like a personal run-in I had with a sports fan in the last month. I had John Middleton, and I said the one from A2D was one of our recent ones was Aqib Talib. So that was that. Those were my ones on that one. But,
I think
if you want to come back, I'll bring it back to you.
Tom's my crumb of the year, and then Jake's the coach second.
Why is Tom crumb of the year? Wait, explain that one. Why is Tom crumb of the year? Get me on.
Just look at him. He just looks like a crumb.
No, I'm going to disagree with your crumb of the year. But no, we'll get into some more NFL playoff stuff next week. Let's get into some Eagle stuff. But before we get into it, obviously we have to address the situation where Jim Schwartz is taking the year off and his contract expire and possibly contemplating retirement. It sounds like a better Band-Aid than mutually parted ways.
Yeah, that sounds like we mutually agreed. That's people trying to save face in this whole thing. Jim, you're not going to be back next year. We're not going to give you a new contract. We don't want to fire you because we appreciate everything you've done for us. Let's both save face here and turn it into something that, looks mutually, like it was on both ends, and that way we can all look good in this process. That's what the hell this is. I mean, it's nothing more, nothing less. Like, let's not sugarcoat it. That's what the hell this is.
I mean, not upset. I guess.
No, I mean,
way, yeah. I don't. I was glad I thought he probably should have went last year, but even that being said, even with his disasters, everything, he still has, ranking wise in the NFL, a pretty good defense.
I think he's done a pretty good job.
But also he probably has one of the top paid defenses in the league because of that front.
Sure,
you better be up in there. So at that same thing, you have to. It's one thing another thing you're going to have to address. John wants to know, what are your best defensive coordinator choices?
Sure, I mean Dan Quinn's out there now. Dan
I know. I think we used to see it. Former host on here, Jake was up.
We'll have to see who else becomes available. Over the next couple weeks when they fire these head coaches. But I think there's a lot of good names out there. There's a lot of really solid names. That you look at. I like Raheem Morris and what he's done in Atlanta. After taking over as the head coach there, and I think they've been more competitive with him as head coach than Dan Quinn was. And I think he's a defensive coordinator that I've always really liked as a defensive mind. He was a young head coach with the Bucs, obviously years ago. Been around the league a long time, and there's a lot of names that are probably going to be available that you look at and say, yeah, bring them all in, interview them all, let's see which ones we like. But I think there's a lot of really good ones.
And another thing we're circling back into, you're hearing a couple people chime in with that. Ertz should be a good crumb of the year, disappearing in that. And we're also hearing the reports that he's probably going to be moved during the offseason. It's probably going to be one of these things that we're going to see where the Eagles move on from. Especially, we already talked that Goddard. Obviously he hasn't been able to really stay healthy, but he's kind of in that same mold, maybe a little bit faster.
This is just a contract that, from the business side of football, me and you have watched football for long enough to know it's not anything personal.
And it wasn't just the fact that he was asking for the contract. You were in the last year deal. The age is right around the time where people kind of move on from one another, unless you kind of relegate yourself to another role and not one of those top tier. He wants one of those top five paid guys. So
the real crumb of the year, and the real crumb in that whole situation is Howie Roseman. He can be named crumb of the year. How about that? Because here's a dude, this fucking snake, this fucking sheep. This dude's down there on a practice field squaring up with a star tight end trying to fight players on his own team. Okay, I'm sorry, but this dude is if you want to talk about the disastrous Eagles season, start to finish, and who's responsible for it. Top to bottom, Howie Roseman, Doug Peterson, and the list is going to go on and on. But we sat here from the beginning and put a ton of blame on Howie Roseman for setting this whole chain of events in motion. A lot of this gets prevented if he just doesn't draft Jalen Hurts in the second round, and he decides to add a J.K. Dobbins or some other wide receiver threat. Mims was there at the time. I know guys didn't like him because he dashed Philly, but you had some players, you're like, oh, yeah, there could be some good players there. A.J. Espenza was a defensive player that was there. Fuller was a defensive back that was there. There was a lot of players that you looked at and said, yeah, we've got a lot of holes that we could fill and make this team better, and they drafted a quarterback. Now, They can say whatever they want, and we consider we've done enough debate and we beat a dead horse with that debate about what their intentions were and what the plan was and all that and yada, yada, yada. The bottom line is it was a Howie Roseman decision, right? We've learned enough since that point till now, enough reports have come out, and we seem to have gotten at least confirmation to know organizationally they were ready to go in a different direction. They wanted to go Jeremy Chin, that was the report that we heard, that Jim Schwartz wanted Jeremy Chin, the organization had set it on it, and Doug Peterson signed off on it. Yeah, that's the guy. And then Howie Roseman was the one that made the decision last second to draft Jalen Hurts. So he's the one for me that gets all the blame, setting this chain of events in motion. He's my real crumb of the year. You gave me enough time to think about it, and we've nailed it. There it is. And then Greg Milekovich is second.
That was another one. That was another one who was one of those picks. And
I'm sure Howie had to have been on somebody's crumb of the year list. I mean, it's just hard not to. It really
Marquise Graham over here is reverberating the Dan Quinn sentiments and kind of letting the people a little bit know about his resume out there. But Matthew over here has another one out here that should be definitely looking into.
I would like D'Amico. I mean, that's not a bad name. I'm a fan of anybody from the San Francisco 49ers staff. I mean, literally, I trust that coaching staff and that organization enough. I think you could name me any assistant on that staff.
And let's not forget, he wasn't a half-baked player as well.
No, and he played in Philadelphia for a few years, and obviously is familiar with everything.
We had him after a couple knee surgeries, but he
wasn't the player that he was in Houston. But the bottom line is he understands the Philly side of everything, right? He's not going to walk in here as an outsider and be shocked by the whole environment and how the fans are and how everything goes. He understands how it all goes. He understands the expectations. He understands all of that, and we seem to have a thing with Jeffrey Lurie ever since he's been our owner. He really, really, really likes guys that he's got some familiarity with, right? It would be a perfect name. But I know who D'Amico Ryans is. Played for me for a few years. I think he would sign off on that hiring like that.
Yeah, that sounds more like what the Eagles would do here. If you're just giving me a shot in the dark and you're just throwing a couple names at me there,
but like I said, I'm really hey, he's been on that San Fran staff for 4 years. I think Robert Saleh is one of the best defensive coordinators in football. They've been through a lot this year with all those injuries and all the other crazy shit, and they still were competitive up there to the very end in a very competitive division. So they'll be just fine. They're going to be one of the better teams in the NFC here for the next 5 or 6 years. They're building something very good out there with John Lynch and all that. Give me any of their assistants. I think Wes Welker's on that coaching staff from what I heard. He's a wide receivers coach out there. I mean, you want to talk about this? Bring him in. He could be my offensive coordinator for all I give a fuck. I trust. We talked about organizations that you're okay. Who do you want to be? Who do you want to model yourself after? If you're going to go hire an assistant coach from somewhere to make him your head coach, you get an executive to make him your GM. Those are the types of organizations you're looking at right now. Organizations that are clearly on the rise. With how and it's hey, the way they're doing things, you can tell it's working. All the young talent that those organizations bring in. And you can start seeing them get this. It's not just potential anymore. They're actually getting the results. The Dolphins are in that position now. All those young players, all the young talent, it's all coming together. They got the best, maybe secondary in all of football. I'd be hard. You probably could hire anybody from the Dolphins staff, the 49ers staffs like that, and it'd probably be really hard for me to sit there and complain and be I hate this hire. I'd be willing to give it a shot. I just would. Yeah.
And the other thing is you're hearing that it looks like Doug is staying. So now you have to run.
So hold on. So is that a report? Because again, I'm down here in Florida, unless I really dig deep into the Philly news and stuff, I don't know what's necessarily floating around up there and the sports radio channels and yada yada. But I don't take just because he came out on the radio and said that he's going to be back next year and the plan and this and that. I don't take to me that doesn't tell me anything. Chip Kelly came out and said something similar at a similar time in the season in 2015 and was fired 3 weeks later. So, I don't, to me, what's Doug going to say at this point, even if they were going to move off of him? What's he going to say? Yeah, I'm not going to be here anyway. It's not going to matter. Of course he's not going to say that. So I don't, until I see something in writing from Schefter or one of those things, I'm not buying any of that.
You really have to wonder where that is because you have to play in the fact the whole Jalen Hurts, Carson Wentz, how that whole situation will play into next season. Is Carson going to?
But does he even really want to be a part of that? I know, literally, he just came out and said he wanted. We think we can fix Carson Wentz and we're going to build the offense around him. Jalen Hurts probably just did a sideways look, like what you mean? Like we're going to build around him? What the hell going on? Like, do you really think if Doug Peterson had a choice, if like 6 other teams called him up this offseason with head coach openings and were like, hey, we'll hire you within 24 hours, like, it's hard for him all of a sudden to not walk out of his situation in Philly and find some way into what he considers a better situation. If Joe Douglas called them up and said, hey, let's run all this shit together in New York, and he knows he's getting Trevor Lawrence or Justin Fields to be his quarterback for the next decade, and then he can build and feel like he doesn't have to worry about the control freak weasel that is Howie Roseman running his organization, and he can actually have a lot of input and say with a guy that he can work well with in Joe Douglas. Like, I think that's what Doug Peterson wants, the ability to feel like what his input is and what his say is, his opinion matters. Maybe he doesn't feel like he has that here because it seems like under Howie, nobody's had that here. It's Howie, Howie gets to fucking have the opinions. Fuck you and your opinion don't matter. At the end of the day, it's whatever Howie thinks. And Jeffrey Lurie's backed that up by, making it known that Howie's his right-hand man. So my bigger question is, and I guess the reason I'm playing devil's advocate, obviously, a little bit with you since you think he's going to be here. But if I'm looking at it and saying, if you're just thinking of it from a grown man perspective, if you're going to be a head coach, like who wants to work for a guy like Howie Roseman who's got this reputation all of a sudden around the league of a weasel, a snake, a control freak, and somebody that's very, very hard to work with? Who wants to work with that guy? Chip Kelly got ran out of town. Doug Peterson's about to go somewhere, and all of a sudden you've got 2 coaches now. We blame Chip Kelly and all of the power struggle. Oh, that was a Chip Kelly problem. Maybe, Chip Kelly's got a power struggle. He's got control issues, sure. Maybe we didn't put enough blame on Howie Roseman, though, in that situation and how much of a role he played in that. Because now we're seeing a similar situation play out with his next head coach that was handpicked is supposed to be a guy that we weren't supposed to have to worry about any of this with. They were supposed to mesh and work really well together. And all of a sudden that didn't work. So if you get rid of Doug Peterson or he agrees, we mutually agree to part way to go somewhere, who do you hire? Like, that's my serious question, Stephen, at that point. Like, who of all the top candidates, who do you hire? Who really wants to come in and say, yeah, I want to be the head coach of your football team? Yeah, you just ran the past 2 head coaches out of town after like 4 or 5 years of a lot of, pretty damn good success. And, one guy won a Super Bowl, one guy took you to the playoffs, and, hell, what the hell do I got to do to be considered have success and for us to be able to mesh well and work well together? And I don't have to worry about the same thing. We were joking about it earlier before we went live earlier this morning, and it's funny, but at the same time, like it makes you shake your head and go, "Geez, like what really has happened in the past 5 years?" Doug Peterson looks like a guy that's aged 20 years in the past 5. He looks like what happens when somebody has kids, and after like 5 years of kids, they're now balding and they got gray hairs everywhere, and you're like, "Oh wow, a lot's changed for you." And in this time, like that's what he looks like. Like the dude was like. His hair looked like mine when he got hired, Stephen. Like, brown. There wasn't gray anywhere in it. You're like, this dude still looks young. He looks in shape. He looks ready to go. Now he looks worn out a little bit, in my opinion. He just looks like a guy that has been through the ringer and looks like he's going through a little bit of burnout, and maybe that's what we've seen finally, the results of what this year is. But you can't tell me that there's not some truth to the fact that when you look at him, he's like, this guy's age, like it looks like he's worn, and like his stress level, like this guy's been stressed out to the max in a 5-year period from when he became head coach to now. I think we've seen it. I think you see it with the way he snaps on people in the press, with the way he answers questions. You see how he's going from the guy he was that was first hired, that was just kind of very jolly, jovial. We used to make fun of him and think he was kind of dopey and all that. Let's go get some ice cream. To now he's just very feisty and kind of a little bit on edge at all times, and he's ready to snap at an instant.
Now one of the ways how you try to fix this is, if he is staying as Bryce is going, you need to get Doug an offensive coordinator. You've already brought in somebody in to kind of help Howie in that sense. So also I think someone just said that
Doug's supposed to have a meeting with Lori on Tuesday, so you never know what's going to happen with that. Going back to what you're saying, so this all could all be for naught. It could all just be for conversation for us this afternoon. But at the end of the day, Howie has to have some type of restrained role as far as personnel drafting, etc. I think that's why you bring in the guy that you bring in, and you got to make changes if Carson's the guy, and that's what kind of sounds like what they're going to do.
Okay. So that's the other big part of this. That's a big
part of the whole thing.
Right?
So, if Doug is staying, what's the quarterback situation? If you're sitting there saying that it's Carson, then we can't be playing around, and we need to go make moves. Like they're blowing Atlanta up. Go call Atlanta and go see what's going to take to get Julio Jones up here. So Carson has a real legit number one guy where he feels like he can get trust on the outside. We know tomorrow will probably be, let's say, at least Alshon Jeffrey and Deshaun Jackson's last game is Eagles, correct?
I mean, I don't know if there's a way out of Alshon's contract next year. That's one to me is iffy. Like, who takes him, and you're still taking a cap hit if you get out of it. I mean, I don't even know if you can move that, although I'm so sick of him. I just, he needs to go. I'd trade him for, like, a bushel of peaches at this point, like a bushel of apples. Whatever it is. For some pork chops and applesauce, Steven. I'd trade him for some good pork chops and applesauce.
Listen. You're gonna have to load up on picks. You're gonna have to find somebody that's gonna need a wide, or even like package him in the thing with like if you do go find a team to go get a wide receiver to go, like if you do like I said, like if you happen to go make that thing happen in Atlanta, throw Alshon in there. No,
he could. It's possible. Sure, it might be a way to move him in with somebody. Like if you found a way to move Ertz.
But we already know. Like I said,
they also take on Alshon's contract or something.
You also have to think of some of the guys on that defensive line that very well could wind up being moved on from.
Yeah, there's is anything that you can do to create any type of cap flexibility they're going to have to look into. And I think that's part of the reason why Howie, I guess when you can look at it and say, well, why does he have any type of valuable role here? It might be that, although he's the one that got us into this cap mess, so I'm not really sure if I'm buying that argument at the moment either. But if you want to make the argument that you need some type of financial wizard type guy on your staff for reasons like this, okay, knock yourself out. But if
sign us up, Mike. I'll sign us up.
Nobody's giving us a third rounder for Alshon, but
no one's giving it, but I'll take that. I mean, like I said, you got to hope to package him in with somebody where you feel like you're going to get some value out of.
Yeah. To your point, right? Peterson's still here and Roseman's still here. Let's say somehow they're both still here next year. Not only we're talking about what Doug Peterson just said about Carson Wentz, and we feel like we can fix him and we want to build the offense around him, but who's to say Howie Roseman feels the same way? It can't just be one or the other. Like, organizationally, they got to get on the same page this offseason with that. And that's the other area where I'm like, I don't know if they can do that. Like, I don't know if I trust what I'm seeing right now with my own eyes to think that the relationship between Doug Peterson and Howie Roseman and all that is healthy enough for me to think that they can get on the same page about what they're going to do this offseason and organizationally how to fix this, for me to think that they can both be here and work together. But if they are both going to be here, that's got to be that's the first thing they've got to come to the conclusion of. This can't be Doug thinks it's going to, we should move on with Carson and Howie wants to move on with Jalen and we're going to figure that out as we go. No, the first thing you've got to figure out right away, as soon as the year's over, is what you're doing, and then go from there organizationally. And it's so be it if Howie and Doug are still here, okay. But it doesn't seem to be that way from what we've seen. It seems like, why would Howie go out and draft Jalen Hurts if he's, to me, that's starting to tell me that at this point they've made the move to Jalen to end the year. Howie seems to be the guy that's fuck Carson and his contract. I made a mistake with all that. I'm willing to admit I made that mistake, and I just want to move on with my new toy I drafted. I want to move on with that kid because he's the new shiny toy, and I'm bored with the old one. I'm going to trade it in for the new model. Like I think that's how I think Howie Roseman. Everything's an asset, right? Like nothing. Like everybody's just a number on a piece of paper. Nobody's anything more than that to him. And at the time, the Carson contract looked good. It seemed like a good idea at the time. Then all of a sudden, he changed his mind. It doesn't seem like a good idea anymore. Just like anybody, Carson's just a number on a piece of paper to him, and it seems like there's definitely enough tension there for me to think, how the hell is that relationship fixable?
Yeah, well, I mean, the Howie Carson thing is probably your biggest problem that you're gonna have moving forward. Like I said, there's a snake in that room, and I don't think it's any one of the players.
Exactly. That's where I'm at. Now, I could be dead wrong, and I've been dead wrong plenty of times in the past. But where I'm at is, in my opinion, from what I've seen with my own eyes and what enough players and we've got former executives that have come out and said, yeah, it was impossible to work in a front office with that guy. Like, it was just so hard to be a part of that organization when you had to work under that guy. He's just so hard to work with. And you got players that have come out and called him a weasel and a snake. And, it's just like at some point, if it walks like a duck and it quacks like a duck or whatever sound a weasel makes, right? Like if it walks like a weasel and it sounds like a weasel, it's a fucking weasel, right? I've just got to trust what what I think, and that's.
Are you dropping T.O.isms on us? Are you dropping T.O.isms on us? Zachary's dropping T.O.isms.
Whatever, but if that's where I'm at, and I don't trust this guy, and I feel like other people in that building don't trust the guy, it's clear Jeffrey Lurie trusts the guy. But I think there's a lot of people in that NovaCare complex, in that Eagles building, players, coaches, other executives. I think there's a lot of people that are like, I don't trust this guy. I mean, even the report that came out with Doug Peterson, where he talked about, he understands what Howie is, as an executive and all that. He's spent enough time around him to know what he is. But that doesn't mean that he's not always looking over his shoulder and he's not aware of, hey, Howie's always looking for the, if you're not paying enough attention, he'll stab you in the back when you're not looking, just because you let your guard down, type of thing.
I can't necessarily disagree with that, Ted. I can't necessarily disagree with that, Ted.
Yeah, that is what it's starting to look like, Ted. It's also starting to look a little bit like what the Phillies were, just before we hired Dombrowski and all this and kind of started going in a good direction. We were just kind of floundering with poor management. And not just poor management, but management that thought that they were much more competent than they really were, right? Not just were they poor management. It's one thing to be poor management, but management that would walk around and talk and puff their chest and act as if they were this big, bad, look how good, and look we're bad shit. Look at us. We're hot shit out here, and you suck. You just suck ass.
I just think
it's starting to remind me of both of those regimes.
I just think that run put Lurie into a fog and thinking he knew what he was looking at, and it was a mirage. I mean, you're lost.
It was a magic carpet ride that none of us will ever forget, right? I mean, literally every dot connected that year to just form the perfect, happy ending. That's how these championship seasons go in a lot of sports, and we've seen. I mean. The Phillies had that magical run, that probably should have resulted in another championship or two. But we've seen that before, right? Great. Like, that doesn't mean, like, the Phillies at least sustained it, right, for a 5-year stretch where they won 5 straight division titles.
We're going to get into that in the coming weeks, Marquise. We're definitely gonna get into.
It's going to be a fun conversation. Sure, we got to leave some stuff for next week, though. But all these things that. I think we looked at it at the time when we won a Super Bowl, and there were some of us definitely that when Doug Peterson made that comments of this is the new norm, we were just kind of like, be careful there, Doug. You know what I mean? Like,
I think just about every one of us, you better watch that one.
Let's not get too big for our britches, right? And maybe everybody in that situation started smelling themselves just a little bit too much. We thought we had it all figured out, and we knew damn well, we were like the 16-year-old kid, right? The whole organization was acting like the 16-year-old kid that thinks he's got everything figured out. We were all that way at that age, right, Stephen? You remember being that
look how Chris breaks down why we won the Super Bowl. I love that one.
I mean, hey, I remember that going around too. Sure, whatever it is, the perfect storm comes, and things happen sometimes, but. I'll tell you what, if it ain't looking more and more like Doug Peterson fell ass backwards into that championship, than it is like anything else right now. Like, sometimes, like, the old saying, right, the sun shines on a dog's ass every once in a while, right? A blind squirrel finds a nut every once in a while, right? It's until you show me something else. Like, we've just gone downhill since then as an organization.
Yeah.
So it's hard to sit here and puff your chest and want to sit here and still act like, well, listen, I won a Super Bowl. Great. So did Barry Switzer. And where'd that get him? Out the door real fucking quick in a couple years. Like, so, is that where we are as an organization right now? Are we the Cowboys when they fired Barry Switzer because, they just realized it's not working? Like, what are we? It's hard for me to sit here and think that I want to see another year of this without, just being status quo. Like, I need to see more than just Jim Schwartz getting fired. If that's the changes, if that was the Armageddon that Jeffrey Lurie was talking about right before Thanksgiving, everybody was laughing. Jeffrey Lurie said, he didn't attend the Browns game, and his comments were if the Eagles missed the playoffs, there would be Armageddon in the offseason. If the Armageddon that he's talking about is simply Jim Schwartz getting fired and nothing else, I don't think I'm on board with that. I just need to see something. You got to show me something.
I'm with you. You need more. We need a few more heads than that. I'm sorry.
Yeah,
you need some more. I mean, and I also think another part. Doug's over here mentioning Joe Douglas, and he plays another part into I think why they were having that success, because he was getting them on the right track. Because if you go take away Malata and Sanders, his track record is not good on any level.
How he seems more and more like the type of guy that the more power you give him, the more trouble you're in. He might be okay in a role where he's got a checks and balance system around him. But if you make him the guy in charge, he's got way too much. He's got that little man complex. That's what it is. Like he's in a sport that's, these giant gargantuan, larger than life
I
athletes.
I don't disagree with that one either.
Yeah, that's not a bad comparison. Sure. Yeah, that's not bad. But yeah, it's probably pretty spot on. That might be the closest thing that I can come to what I would think of as far as if I could say what the relationship is, what it reminds me of. Howie set the Eagles back 6+ years already. They're just going to keep, sure.
Yeah, you can take Houston out of that. Houston put themselves back another
Houston
5.
Put themselves in a deep hole too. More of what you've seen with bad Mitch. I mean, and that's what I'm scared of becoming. Like, we have. We are that. We have become too stubborn. Like that's.
Well, here's the thing. They had pieces around them where they should have done a little bit more than what they had, and they literally just tore it. They're literally tearing everything off.
Ryan had to act like the smartest guy in the room. Too much ego involved. It looks like you're gonna people started sniffing themselves.
And it kind of also looks like you're gonna waste J.J. Watt's prime. That's another sad.
Well, and does it not speak volumes that J.J. Watt came out and they said, well, what do you need to do to change things? Like, I know he didn't mention anybody by name, but when you come out and say it's not that hard to show up to practice when you're supposed to and show up on time when you're supposed to, like, who's not showing up on time? Like, who's not showing up to practice when he didn't mention anybody by name, but there's somebody that clearly knows who the fuck they are in that building. He didn't have to mention them by name for them to know, God damn, that's a reference to me because I've been late to a couple meetings. You know what I mean? Like, there's some shit going on. Bad organizations, it's not just bad for any one or two reasons. We've kind of been talking about this with the Eagles all year, right? Like, it's bad because top to bottom, it's just bad. And sometimes you can only see so much of it. You can only see maybe what's going on the football field. You can't see just how ugly and how much of a mess it is, in every other facet of the organization. If we're just trying to be real about what the Eagles are, I'm past the point of, how do you fix it? Just fire everybody. Like, when things get this ugly, like, I know we're going to hurt some feelings in the process. And fuck people's feelings. But we've learned that Jeffrey Lurie cares way too much about guys' feelings, right? So this is what happens. You become the Houston Texans when you're stubborn and you refuse to pull the trigger and make a move that is it a popular move? Is it a move that you're like, damn, it really, really hurts me to have to make a move and fire a guy that I have a lot of respect for and a lot of love for, but it's just something I have to do? Well, that's sometimes what you got to do as a businessman. Jeffrey Lurie's the businessman that's running the Eagles. We've seen this story before. Held on to Andy Reid way too long, right? Didn't want to pull the trigger there because of the personal relationship. You can't get personally attached to these people, like in a business like this, as like an owner. You've got to know when it's time to just say, hey, it's been awesome, but enough is enough. I appreciate that Lurie at least has, I guess, some sense of like, hey, there's a personal relationship side to this too, because we've talked about how Roseman seems to have complete ignorance of that. Like, he doesn't give a fuck about the personal relationship side of it. He's just everybody's a number on a piece of paper. But there's got to be balance there. Like, you can't be so attached to people that you're not going to fire somebody simply because, well, I trust them. Well, okay, so you trust them. You can't find somebody else you trust? You can't find somebody else that you trust that can actually draft talent and evaluate and actually run an organization? Like, I get that you trust the guy. So make him your personal accountant. Like he's your personal accountant. You can still trust the guy. I don't why do you have that? He has to be in charge of your organization because you trust him. I don't know. That to me sounds like we make fun of Jerry Jones with the fucking Cowboys. Like, I mean, how do you not make fun of Jeffrey Lurie at this point for some of the same shit? You know what I mean? Like, he thought of the Jerry Jones Jason Garrett relationship. It's a perfect fucking analogy. Because you're literally the same shit we make fun of Jerry Jones about is the same shit that we can now talk about Jeffrey Lurie. He builds a personal relationship with guys, and then he thinks way more of them than anybody else does.
Yeah. Marquise is on a roll this afternoon.
Time for the youth movement. We need young players under 30. Well, we've needed young players under 30 for a few years, and we kept bringing Jason Peters back to play instead of Jordan Mailata and Andre Dillon. So, we need a youth movement. Yeah, well, we have a youth movement. We just aren't using it because, Jason Peters is demanding money and the playoff cap. Wouldn't it have been nice? I mean, I'm just saying. Wouldn't it have been nice to be like, okay, fuck you, Jason Peters. Maybe I'm not as confident, I'm not confident with Jordan Mailata, but I've got to learn what I have in Jordan Mailata because it's just one of the things you got to do. You got to learn with what you got in fucking young players sometimes. I can't pay a 38-year-old Jason Peters who I know isn't going to be a part of this in a year just because, I've got to figure out what I've got in this kid. And we'd at least know going into next year whether he's our left tackle of the future or not. Well, we liked what we saw from him. We're like, yeah, he showed a lot of good signs, and there were some glimpses like, hey, this kid, he was pushing some guys around. He looked really good. But you can't really be sold on him because they never committed to him at that position enough for you to be like, hey, we know what it is. Now we've got to wait and have that conversation next year. That could have been a conversation that was already solved and one less thing you had to worry about. We're going into an offseason where we've got probably more questions than any offseason we've had in a long time with this organization, right? And you've done silly things like pay Jason Peters extra money and guarantee him playing time over Jordan Mailata when you could have very simply just, we got to figure out what we have in this kid. This is one of the questions we've got to answer, and you would have had it answered like that. And even if it's a 4-win season and you feel like, damn, we suck, at least you learned something like that out of it, right? And you got something like that out of what was otherwise a lost season. You figured out which young players you're going to move forward with and which young ones you aren't. I don't even know. We want to have this conversation about young players and who you move forward with. Marquise said you got to move forward with players under 30. Who on this roster do you look at and say, absolute lock that I'm moving forward with that guy? There might be 2 guys. Everybody else to me is.
Well, no, like I was sitting there saying, like when you look at it, it's Goddard, Miles Sanders, Jordan Mailata. You can't even say either one of these quarterbacks, even though they're under 30, just because you don't.
And even the 3 names that you mentioned, you don't look at any of them and say, "Wow, stud." You hope Jalen Reagor turns into something.
Well, what Jordan Mailata he looks like he gets in trouble when his guard falters and he has to kind of play both protecting need like he'll go to punch on the inside and doesn't kick out fast enough to go back and go do what he's doing.
Of the 3 players you mentioned, you would think Mailata's got the best chance to be a legitimate superstar in the league, like a guy you look at.
I don't know about superstar, but he definitely could be an all Pro Bowl type player.
He can anchor your offensive line.
Yeah, he could be that guy because you don't know what you have in Dillon right now, and you have to question that more than what you've seen out of the play from Jordan Mailata. So
I guess my point was like,
the one thing is that Matt Pryor should not have a spot on this team moving forward.
Yeah, I actually like Driscoll a lot more. I think Driscoll's a good like, hey, like that kid could end up
and then he blew me up.
Nice little player. But I guess my point was, and I'm with you. I like Mailata too, and I like Sanders, and I like Goddard. But if we're talking about like young players to build them out, like almost every other organization in football has at least one young player on their roster where you're like, that guy, give me him. Let me build my organization around him. Whether it's Bosa out in San Francisco, or Garrett in Cleveland, and they've got a bunch of young talent there, but still, you're looking at guys where you're like, this guy is a game changer, right? Like he's enough of an impact player where he changes things for my franchise. We don't have, I don't think a single guy on this roster that I would say is a young player, one of these young, under 25 players that's still a second or third year type guy or younger that I look at and say, him, like he's going to be a fucking stud. Like I got to have at least one stud. Like you got to have, I get it. We talk about coaching, and the coaching hasn't been good, but like every other good team, like good organization, they've got fucking studs. You've got playmakers on both sides of the ball.
Right.
We don't have a single
Matt Pryor is garbage.
playmaker, right? Like, am I wrong there? Like we thought Sanders.
Well, and everyone was telling us after week 6 that Travis Fulgham was the answer, and does he have a spot?
He could end up still being a nice player, but the bottom line is, great. So at best case scenario, we've got a bunch of young guys that could be nice players.
Can Josh Sweat stay healthy enough to play?
I would agree with you, Marquise, except for the knee issues that, is the whole reason why he fell in the draft the way he did, is the idea that he can't handle a full, like he can't play every snap as a defensive end. His knees just can't handle that. Now, maybe we're wrong, and
I have to disagree with that to a point with you. I don't think it's a great win. He's a nice piece to be on this team.
Another guy that's just a nice player, but you look at it and you say, hey, he's a nice player. Not a stud, not a superstar. Like you can only have so many. Like if you have a team full of nice players, that only takes you so far. Like we've got a team full of solid players. Yeah, but you don't have any stars. You don't have any playmakers. You don't have any guys that are game breakers that can go out there and change a game like that. Like without at least one or two of them, you're not going to like. It's just not. You're not going to have success in this league. That's the bottom line, right? Like you can look around at all the good teams. They all have somebody that you're like, that guy's a playmaker. Offensive, defensive, whatever the case might be, both sides of the ball. Usually the really good teams have at least one on both sides of the ball, right? You can't look at a single guy on this team right now and say, that guy's a playmaker. We've got a bunch of guys who are like, hey, he can be a playmaker, got potential to be a playmaker, hope that guy grows into a playmaker, but right now, don't have any playmakers. We have no weapons, no stars. Yeah, I mean, that's the closest thing that we have to a star. I mean, the closest thing that we probably have to an impact player, like, a playmaker is Darius Slay. I mean, that's probably the closest thing that we have.
Oh man, what you giving Fletcher a big slap in the mouth? Did you see what happened to that team after he went out of that game?
Yeah.
That man, come on, man. I give Fletcher a lot of heat. Hold on, Fletcher has an impact in a different way. He draws a ton of attention, and his presence allows everybody else around him on that defensive line to eat and have a ton of success. Doug is also bringing up a point here too, because you could move Carson with one of those teams, because they would have the
hypothetical situation of Doug ending up with the Jets played out, and Joe Douglas is also there. And Doug's already, we can fix Carson and build around him. Here you go, Doug. Let's start. What do you want to do? That's a possibility. The 49ers are another team that people aren't looking at right now because they're not realizing that once they get out of Jimmy Garoppolo's contract, they, along with the Jets and New England, all three of them will have a ton of cap space. They'll have the 3 most cap spaces in football. And there's an opt-out clause in the Garoppolo contract. The 49ers have a side door out of that contract this offseason. They're opting out of that contract just because. Now, whether they might renegotiate with them and he'll sign a new deal. But one way or another, they're opting out of that deal just because that's what you're going to do here, and you're going to play hardball on the business side of it. So, I mean, I don't think that Like, I think there's
I
definitely
agree.
a possibility.
I agree that if you put like everyone keeps talking about the Colts because of the Frank Reich thing, and that the fact that your price is probably
it's too obvious, right? Is it one of those things you look at and you say it's just too obvious?
But listen, I think that would probably be my dark horse, and if that happens, that's big.
New England, I could definitely see making a move for him. The Jets, depending on if like Peterson ended up there, I could see making a move for him. And I really people say I really think San Fran's going to be in on him because I think Shanahan and that offensive staff looks at Carson and looks at everything that they do offensively with the play action game and all that. And I think they would love the idea of being able to have Carson in that offense and what they think he could be as a player.
Now we've kind of beaten on these other drums of the what ifs and that, but what do you actually is going to happen with the skeleton game that we got Sunday night?
How is that going to be? Like, that's going to be in prime time. Like, you know what's funny is like that's almost like a fuck you to the NFL. They flex the game to prime time and then we sit half our roster. We're like, fuck you, stupid ass. Why would you put that game at 8:30? Who the hell is watching the Eagles and Washington football team practice squads battling out?
I guess because the Redskins would hypothetically be playing for whether they clinch the division or not, and then you have Jim Schwartz's nonsense with no hats rule because you can't win in our building or some nonsense. Listen, you guys didn't have the fortitude to hold up for at least a handful of these games that you could have turned the other way. And you want to talk to me about how, like, Dallas cannot win. No. I'm not dealing with that. I'm more than happy swallowing a pill of the Washington Redskins winning it. And it appears Alex Smith is gonna play. So yeah, I'm definitely.
I like Ron Rivera. I have a ton of respect for Rivera. Love him as a coach. Obviously, it's hard to hate on Alex Smith at this point with everything he's overcome. So, we hate the Cowboys. We hate the stinking Giants. The Washington football team, they've always kind of been the younger brother, right? Like, they're the younger brother that the rest of the division beats up on, right? Like, everybody else beats up on them, and finally, like, it's like, okay, like, younger brother has to win every once in a while, right?
Yeah.
There's no shame in letting younger brother win every once in a while. Be like, good for him. Good for him. Yeah, go ahead, win the division. We can stomach that much more than we can stomach the Cowboys or the Giants winning it. So, it's not the self out type of thing, right? But when being honest, when you look at them, they probably have the most complete roster of all the NFC East teams.
Yeah,
I mean, they've got the most complete roster. They're not quite there yet, but when you look at them top to bottom, that defense is solid. I mean, Chase Young is. You want to talk about players? Talk about like you want the guys. You look at somebody like that guy changes the franchise. That's what you're talking about. You need a guy like one or two guys like that, one guy on each side of the ball that's like somebody like that for you. Like, they're already ahead of like 15, 20 other teams because they simply have a guy that's that dominant and that much of a game changer that other teams don't have. And having that guy is putting you already that much ahead of the curve. I think they're going to be really, really dangerous over the next 5 years. If they find a quarterback, like, can you imagine how good they actually become if they get a legitimate franchise quarterback?
Hey, listen, if they could pick cherries from some of these quarterbacks are not put in great situations. Like, if the Jets actually do give up on Darnold and he winds up elsewhere, he could be another one of those guys that has fun. But it looks like our first guest is already in the back here, so let's bring Elise in here and let's have some fun. So let's welcome. Let's welcome our guest for this afternoon. She is Cage Fury Fighting Champions, strawweight champion there, Elise Reed. How are we doing this afternoon?
I'm very good. How are you guys?
We're just having fun, just soaking in the misery of this NFL season and all that. So, you're going to give us a happy change of pace here.
Perfect. My pleasure.
We're basking in the shenanigans, and you're just welcome to join us. It's wonderful. It's what we do every Saturday.
So obviously, you're coming off a big win. Tough fight. Obviously that's what happens when you're in cage fury over there. They're giving you some of the best to kind of give yourself that plateau to the next platform there. Another tough one. You're able to kind of secure the win. So how you feeling after that, especially with everything's going on this past year with pandemic, a lot of people losing fights last minute, events being canceled, etc. like that.
Yeah,
It's been kind of a lot of craziness.
Yeah, honestly, again, it all started with in August fighting Jasmine and having a huge opportunity with CFFC. I took it on as a win-win because she was so much bigger, had all of the probability really to her. And CFFC is a great organization, and I've been fortunate and blessed to be able to take 2 wins and 4-0 fighter, 20 in the country, and then this past one was Jillian DeCourcy, and she was number 8 in the world as an atomweight.
Yeah.
So no, I'm on cloud 9. I'm definitely enjoying my break here, my Christmas and New Year's, but we're ready to do it again for sure.
Yeah, obviously the year's turned over. Cage fury normally keeps pretty busy. Normally every handful of months they'll have an event. Are you looking back to get back in there in somewhere in like February, March? Is that what your kind of target is? Are you taking some time off? What are you looking to do?
Yeah, well, so the last fight I came off of an injury, and that was back to back in terms of recovering from the injury and then trying to get back into training. I am injury free right now, which is great. So I can get back right to training, but yeah, probably February, March. I know that they're trying to build the 115 division at CFFC, so we're going to kind of see how they play out. It would be really great to have somebody that has already fought in the organization in the same division, because right now they're just throwing new people. So
yeah,
so we'll see. Probably March, April.
I mean, it's one of the rough things, like people who don't know, like who don't really follow MMA, like understand the hard part of trying to put together these weight classes. And also because you can't really hold people to it, like when you're not one of these big organizations. So you also have to be fair in that sense. So you also cannot you can't downplay some of the things that you guys have to go through it in that sense. When it comes to like what case you're asked, and Doug absolutely robbing them guys are absolutely top notch over there.
Yeah,
but,
and the big thing is you pick up people from CFFC. Or UFC.
And that's the other thing is that they've had a kind of open relationship with the UFC for at least the last like 5 to 8 years or so, something to that now. So having that platform being on there, and that's also the other plus of it. So even if you don't like say for you wind up having to relinquish because you wind up having fights in other organizations, you still already have that people that have that eye on you, and still coming back in. Obviously, that's not something on your plan, but at the end of the day, you still want to find girls that are at your weight class who you're supposed to be fighting at the end of the day, because you know how it goes in this world. She just beat up on girls that were smaller than her. I mean, you remember what they used to say to Chris Cyborg for the longest time? That they just found girls for her to feed on for the longest time until Amanda Nunes. And Amanda Nunes, at the beginning of her career, wasn't the greatest start of things, and she is arguably the women's goat, so to speak.
Absolutely.
But we can have some arguments about that one right now, because now we're starting to see. I got to ask you about it. You heard Clarissa Shields, of the former Olympic boxer, world champion boxer, is now dipping her hand into it. I want to get your thoughts on that one too. Little confident thinking she can get a black belt in 2 years. Don't you think?
Yeah. I mean, listen, I don't know what background she has. I know Holly Holm did a really good job from the same camp, going from boxing to MMA. She ended up getting a championship. It's a little different though. I mean, I kind of have the same semblance where I'm a striker and I don't necessarily do as much ground. So the game plan for 90% of the people that I fight is to go to the ground. And I can assume that Clarissa is going to have that same issue, right? Where everybody knows that you can keep people at range, keep people at distance. But even a solid kicker or a really good ground wrestler, grappler is probably going to give her some issue. But
yeah, but I also think that's also a good reason why she went to somewhere like PFL to kind of start off, because they'll kind of cater to her needs at least for the first year or so, and then eventually she'll find one of these girls who's a legit grappler wrestler, and we'll see how far she's really come along.
Yeah, I mean, top-notch athletes are athletes. So I mean, there's I'm blanking on her name, but there's an NFL guy that's right now as a heavyweight, beat Juan Adams. He had like an asthma thing and did an illegal knee, but he's doing really good things. And he's Greg Hardy. He's doing really good things in the UFC, and he didn't necessarily have a big amateur career.
That's a sore spot with us Eagles fans. That's a sore spot with us Eagles fans. We got no love. We got no love for Greg Hardy over here.
I'm glad he's making the most of his fighting career. But yeah, I mean, you can't beat up a woman the way he did and expect me to have respect for the person. But hey, I'm glad he's making the transition.
Listen, I'm not denying the man a paycheck. I just don't think. I think he should have to go the same route as Elise is going here. He should have.
I can respect how hard it is to make the transition from one sport to the other and actually successfully make that transition from an athlete perspective.
Yeah. No, but again, he's somebody that has done professional sports and was kind of given a gold ticket a little bit to the UFC, and that's what he's doing in the UFC. So I think Clarissa obviously going through the PFL. PFL is a great organization as well. Very good fighters that are not necessarily given as much of the glory, but wish her the best for sure. Yeah.
I mean, that should be. I say it's interesting. You gotta love it when combat sports is kind of getting a little bit more of the shine. Regardless, I think it's more of a blackout of boxing. You have a lot more of your female boxers that are starving because you're not paying them what they deserve, and they're running the MMA and building their brand bigger.
Yeah, and that just speaks to boxing. I mean, there's plenty of female boxers that won't make anything near to where the male boxers make, and they see MMA and the UFC and the CFFC and other organizations as the way forward, and it's a smart move.
I also think you're going to wind up looking at where where you even see bare knuckle boxing. Like I know, where you see you have that first start, and you'll see a lot more of that. Like obviously, we're gonna have Paige Van Zandt making her bare knuckle boxing debut Super Bowl weekend, so that should be interesting in and all itself. So I mean, that's another avenue. I got to ask you about that too. Like,
oh no,
where you have like, it's the one thing you got to love about MMA, because you've trained all these different backgrounds, but it's kind of cool to say where you're giving you these things, where you have in these different avenues where you can compete and make money and still kind of grow your brand. I think it's kind of probably one of the cooler things that has kind of happened with this sport over the last 10 years or so.
No, I mean, MMA has definitely gotten a big build in terms of bare knuckle boxing. I don't ever see myself bare knuckle boxing. I get hit enough. I don't need somebody hitting me with just straight knuckles. I like to keep this as close to the way it started as possible. But no, MMA is great, and honestly, as much as this Corona stuff has shut down a lot of things, UFC and CFFC and those other organizations did a great job continuing to put fights together, and a lot of times it was the only thing that was visible on TV, right? I mean, it was like NBA.
I think it was MMA and it was sport combat jiu-jitsu. That was it. For I think it was at least 2 months or something like that.
It was a lot. I had the physician that did my first one in August. He was like, I had never watched MMA, and he knew that I was a fighter. And he comes in and he's looking at me, which is a 5'3", 120 soaking wet. He's like, you don't look like a fighter. I was like, yeah, well, he goes, well, I've been watching it since, there's nothing else on. So I mean, I think MMA has gained a lot of fans since COVID. Hopefully, obviously in 2021, it's a much better year, but I think MMA has definitely built a brand a little bit better.
So let me piggyback off that a little bit and ask you like a serious question from, fighters. It's what you do for a living. Like, this is your life, right? It's more, I'm not just, it's not just a career or a job. Like, this is your life, and you dedicate yourself to it.
Yeah.
So how, like, from a serious perspective, how, like, deep down, how much does it really feel like disrespectful to the craft to see somebody like a Jake Paul try to, all of a sudden say he's going to quit what he's doing with his Instagram and I'm going to try to go and be a fighter? Like, that's really gotta like to people that are like dedicating their life to it. It's really gotta like eat at you, doesn't it? Like the idea of like Dana White joking like Amanda Nunes could go, I want him to fight Amanda Nunes so she can kick his ass. Like I almost want to see that happen just so I can watch her kick his ass.
He didn't even know who she was, which is the biggest insult to say that at the very least, right? You don't know who the double class champion is, the 145, 135, and that was a big insult to me. In terms of somebody making money off of fighting and people being entertained, I mean, any fighter knows that it's really an entertainment game in terms of getting the big money and chasing the money in that regard and getting to those big ticket items is being entertaining and putting on a show. So I don't necessarily knock them for doing that. I mean, if people want to watch it, then I don't have any problem. I do think that there is a difference between being a martial artist and understanding that there's like this very personal connection to it. And there's kind of like a development, not only mentally, physically, and emotionally in terms of building that. But fighting and martial arts can be combined, but a lot of times it's a little different, right? I've trained martial arts since I was a kid, since I was 6. I love teaching other people. I like seeing that development happen. But do I think about that while I'm fighting somebody and hitting somebody? No, not necessarily. I'm not trying to be all endeared the entire time. So martial arts has done a lot of good, philosophically speaking, and in that type of like personal mindset. But in terms of people making money, he's doing good. I mean, I'd like to be there. I'd like to be able to call somebody out and be like, you know what, let's throw down and let's make some dough here. But there definitely is a difference between being a martial artist and like.
But see, there's a difference because he's a guy. He has so many different people he can pick from. Like you can't go and pick some celebrity to kind of pick people pay a lot of money to see fight. I mean, what are you gonna call out? Was it Selena Gomez? I think is the only one that I can think of that is famous that is a rapper or something. That I mean, there's not a whole lot of people she can choose from. I just heard. What was it? Tom Hardy just got his blue belt in jiu-jitsu. Why don't you call out Tom Hardy? Let's see if that one works better.
So you're saying that you actually like you don't feel disrespected by it? Like you don't like I guess I felt like I heard some people
a fight, right?
That. You don't feel like it's
if
like,
we're entertained by it, if we want to see it, we want to see it. Like does it really matter at that point?
Yeah, I mean, I think martial artists that have done it so long and are in it there for that development and for that thing that outside of money. I didn't watch his last one, but I mean, there's plenty of martial artists out there that know the boxing and is going to look at it and be like, that is straight trash. And I think that's kind of what, at least from what I get to see on the side that I know a little bit more, and I've done it, at this level, professionally, grateful, again, fortunate, but I think we probably just call out the things that they screw up with a little bit more than most. But I'm not necessarily mad.
I also think there's another thing to it. I also think there's another thing to it. When we're talking about combat sports, there's kind of layers to it. Both athletes, fans are different. It all depends on what you're trying to get out of it. Like what you're saying, like the purists of the sport are always going to reject the people who are in it just because they're popular and people want to see them and get paid to get money. You're always going to see the purists that are always you're going to break them down, and also the people who come in you're always going to have problems with because you're going to be like, hey, like you haven't paid your dues yet. Obviously, some kind of earn that respect, and some really don't care if they ever earn that respect or not. Yeah. Some people are tuning in to see who the best man or woman on that night is, and some tune in for the entertainment value of the fight. I think it's like an onion. It's a different layer for everyone.
Yeah. I mean, in terms of somebody that I have looked up to as a martial artist and a fighter, I would say GSP. George St. Pierre is one of the most holistic people that I've ever seen fight. The way he carries himself, he's won multiple titles. I mean,
I got to ask you, were you disappointed with his announcement last week?
That is not coming back. Listen, I would let George St. Pierre.
I wasn't expecting him to come back. I was expecting a little bit more than like a non-alcoholic beer announcement. I was hoping like maybe a movie or like something we would all kind of enjoy.
No,
I don't know a whole lot of people that's gonna want like a Spitzer drink. I don't know what that is.
But he's probably the most holistic. I mean, Conor McGregor, obviously
He's probably
very, very
not
skilled,
just that, like he's
talks a lot of
pure in a
trash.
lot of senses with his fighting, how he carries himself as an individual. Like if you have to find yourself in a really hard position not to like him. And I remember when during that time is like kind of when I was like growing up in MMA. It was like when I remember watching that live, like him do that whole leading the Dana for the title. I remember watching that like very vividly, and just to see how he grew from that point. I didn't really care for him at that point, but over time, it just like you cannot hate this man. It's really hard not to, and you kind of understand why Khabib walks away, and that's the only fight he really wants to look at, and. You can't blame him because he's kind of, you really look at them, they're kind of in that same same ilk, the way they kind of carry themselves, the way they kind of view the sport and stuff like that. So I kind of have to agree with Khabib to that point, and I really don't care for them trying to rip him back out of it. If he wants to come back on his own terms, let him come back. But as far as I think that's his unicorn fight, and he's just never going to get it. It should be something like what Apollo and Rocky did at the end of Rocky 3, where you have a fight behind closed doors, and y'all figure out who it is that way.
Khabib and McGregor.
That's not fair to us, but you know how lions go. They got to know, right?
Oh yeah. No, yeah, that's part of fighting. Yeah.
Yeah, I guess that's where like I differ. Like Steven, obviously you're like hardcore, like, and I'll watch a UFC fight.
I'm not as hardcore as I used to be. I used to be like that. I would watch it over any other sport, but like it got like you get to a point with the sport, like I'm sure Elise knows that this because she trains all the time. Like you get to a point of it, it's like okay, I got you.
Yeah, I joke with my coach. I'm the one of the worst MMA fighter because like during camp, you're doing 3-4 hours a day. You're doing grappling, striking, right? And my coach is being like, okay, so this is the game plan, and you're just so in it. The last thing, no offense to any fighter, but the last thing I want to watch is like UFC fights. It's like, okay, I've already gone through this for at least 4 hours for the day. So,
I mean, unless it's somebody you really like enjoy tuning into, like it's not something you're gonna do. And like people who don't consistently have watched it over a long period of time. They like, it's like, how do you be into it? And just kind of like, it just, you love it. It's not like you don't love it. It's just like, you see it so much. It's just like, I got you.
But if you watch a fight,
have you flaked on teammates fights? That's the question.
Have I not watched my teammate fight? No, I will always watch my teammates fight. That I'll make a point. I was at a axe throwing thing once, a birthday party, and I made sure I had it on my phone because I wanted to make, of course you're gonna watch your teammate fight. But that would probably be it. During training camp, teammates they get all my time. Outside of that, not so much.
So when you're watching your teammates, are you like, when you watch a fight, are you more breaking it down and saying, hey, I'm watching this move, watching how they do that, or are you just like watching, like I feel like when I watch it, like we talk about McGregor, like McGregor was a guy I like watching, just I find this guy entertaining. I'm not really watching a fight, like breaking down what's happening as much as I'm, I guess, watching the fight for the characters involved.
Yeah, I mean, I don't know the game plan, but a lot of times if I have a little bit of the background of the person, or I know, in terms of the UFC people or the people fighting, you can kind of see where it's going, and you can understand it definitely a lot more than I think somebody that would just be watching it to entertain it. There has been times where I just put it on the background, and I'm trying to be a little bit more casual about it and not like analyze every bit. But I definitely don't just sit on the couch and get entertained by their trash talk. It's definitely more of a well, he's got the inside leverage, or he's going to go for the underhook, or he's got a choke set up, and a lot of times I find, like, if I like the move, and I'll do this on Instagram too, is I'll scroll through stuff, and if I find a move that I like, I'm like, okay, I got to remember that because that's a really good setup. And so I'm like picking and choosing the stuff that I want to now incorporate into my game plan a little bit. Like one guy did a sidekick spin sidekick, caught the sidekick, right? The other guy caught the sidekick in the stomach. He jumped up and threw the other foot right into his face, knockout. I was like, yes, I know that kick, sidekick spin sidekick. Yeah, so no, it's definitely a little bit more analytical. I want to chill out a little bit, I probably have a drink with me on in my hand to relax, so I'm not so analytical. But yeah, I'll join you a little bit.
I'm being boring and being healthy.
Being healthy. Mm.
What? It's a coconut drink. Leave me alone.
Not going to help your ugliness.
What does that have anything to do with this?
I've tried coconut milk, coconut water, and I don't like it.
No, this is this is not like the. I know what you're talking about. So it's like it doesn't like
nasty.
I have to have. It's this one. If it's not this one, I can't. I cannot.
Okay, all right.
I know what you mean. If it's not that one, I won't even. I tried a couple of them like before, and I was like, "What's that? Why does the other one like? I don't know. I get made fun of. Like my girl makes fun of me, tells me I taste like something.
Oh yeah.
Extra alcohol.
Extra alcohol. And speaking of which, how was the holiday, the New Year? Were you able to kind of enjoy some time with the family or not?
Yeah, no, yeah, absolutely. I mean, Christmas I had at my parents' place. We went out to dinner. New Year's Eve, I went out with my family, and then I went, to a friend's house after. So, very fortunate to be able to celebrate this season the right way. There was a time where I fought at 105 as an amateur. And the fight was Saturday after Thanksgiving, which means the weigh-ins were Friday after Thanksgiving, which means I was cutting weight on Thursday of Thanksgiving, and I had a salad at like 2:00 in the afternoon, and I was done. Yeah, it was miserable. My coach was like, "Hey, you can join me for Thanksgiving at my place." And I was like, "No, I'm just gonna end up sitting there eating a salad. I'll be all right." So it was a Thanksgiving by myself. So I'm very fortunate that I could spend it with the family and the right way, without any coconut water.
Absolutely. And screw you, Anthony, by the way. I'm not 80 years old, but, we've been having some conversations here in the chat. You've been hearing some guys throwing their favorite ones around. Matthew sitting there and say Chuck and Tito was entertainment gold. What was maybe some of your favorite entertainment moments of MMA over the past few years that kind of really sticks out to you?
So McGregor is a fight, Holly Holm and Ronda Rousey. Rousey fight coming up.
When she stopped the train.
Yeah, that was something. I mean, watching Ronda after that first loss kind of was a little rough because she kept trying to strike again. McGregor, I was fortunate. I watched the UFC 205 in Madison Square Garden live. So I looked back on that card, and that was a stacked card that had Miesha Tate, that had a whole bunch of good fighters there.
Well,
so
and actually, there's rumors Miesha's returning to MMA. What are your thoughts on that one?
Is she? I hadn't heard. I know
she was doing the sport grappling, but I've been hearing rumors floating around that she's got that once she's
got that itch again.
Yeah, I think she's gonna try to see if she can get the weight down to where she wants to, and yeah, I mean, hopefully maybe she'll fight at a little bit higher weight to not have to really cut all the way down to 35, because 45 is gonna be needing something soon, especially if you're really looking like Amanda might leave it in the next year or so as well, because of her wanting to start her family. I mean, I don't think it's a bad idea too, because I mean, you really look at it. I mean, 45 is still looking for someone to lay their crown on.
Yeah. I mean, the 45 division is a tough division because it's so heavy for ladies, and so you either got to be like really committed to 45 or know that you're going to come in light. Personally,
I think Kayla Harrison is obviously she's the future of that division. Let's be honest about that. We know that. But I'm talking about the immediate future. That could probably be the passing of the guard if Miesha really does intend to come back. Like I said, it's just kind of rumblings around inner circle in MMA right now. Obviously, I think it's the second time she's did the sport jiu-jitsu fight too. So it's not like it's not like it's a new thing that she's been doing. I just think the actual MMA thing has kind of been popping out because you've been hearing some names disappear and I mean, if I'm her, just if Dana's making a phone call and makes the right offer, do it.
Yeah. I mean,
Ronda really isn't around. Amanda's about to leave.
are kind of in this weird transition place where they're going to need kind of a face.
Yeah.
I would do it.
Yeah. Yeah. I mean,
and it kind of goes to how like the UFC formulates things as they move forward. They kind of attach themselves to somebody and then push
build them up. Yeah.
until the tires wear out or they lose.
I hope that I can end this early so I don't have to come out of retirement. I mean, I get it, but you also got to do a lot of work getting punched in the face. And, if you don't need to get punched in the face, then.
And that's another thing I like to ask a lot. But that's another thing I like to ask some of the fighters too. Like a lot of people get into it for a reason. A lot of the guys for specific reasons.
Right.
But the female athletes, I always kind of see like, what are your overall goals when it really comes to it? Like some people use this as a platform to kind of really help build connections to grow personal businesses that they can do moving forward. Some people they just like they're just looking for something else and MMA was there and it's just something that they feel like that they're good at, or there's just those some very few that come through this sport that are just born MMA fighters, or they're just born fighters. You know what we're talking about? They're the rare ones, the ones that stick out. You don't need any real promotion behind it. It's just who that is. It's like when we talk about MMA, when you say names like Fedor. That dude's a fighter. It doesn't matter. It doesn't matter what you feel about like anything else that they like.
Yeah.
Like even when we talk, we were talking about women. Ronda, Amanda, the Cyborg. Those are all things
Cyborg is that's a good call. Yeah. No. I got into it, because I did martial arts and I was good at it. And Mr. K always said, you never know until you get hit in the face. And so I ended up getting hit in the face, and it wasn't so bad. But do I mean that I want to do that, for the next 15 years? Absolutely not. No, I don't want to be getting hit in the face for 15 years. So
nobody likes getting hit in the face, right? Like, some people deal with it better than others. But you're not going to choose to have that happen every day of your life.
No, absolutely not.
What I always used to tell my kids when I had them training, like over the last 5 to 10 years, is like, listen, like even if you quit this and walk away from it, take something from it.
Yeah.
If you want to push it to that part where you want to be a fighter one day, take that and use that for whatever it's worth to do whatever it is to go to the next stage of your life. It's not going to define who you are, but also make sure the time that you put into it is well spent and you have a plan with it.
Yeah. So I'm going to take it as far as it can. I got really fortunate with the second fight was a title fight, which never happened. Second fight is a title fight. I was like, oh God, someone pitched me. So here we are, and we're gonna just take.
But that's when I said to the popularity of what women's mixed martial arts has become and women's combat sports have become over the past 10 years. Is that it's gotten to the point where you're sitting there, it's a surprising thing. It doesn't happen every day, but it's not as uncommon in women's MMA as it is now. You got to remember, like if we rewind 20 years, how it was from there, it was really common in men's mixed martial art. I keep sitting there saying where the women are going to take this sport over the next 5 to 10 years together with what has been building on. Is just it'll be amazing. I still think it. If one of these sports continue to play around and falter, that combat sports in general will kind of overtake them as one of the big sports.
Yeah, and a lady.
You can argue with me all you want, but we all have our own, I guess, poison when it comes to it. It's all in perspective. We'll see how it goes.
Yeah. Ladies fights are definitely different than men's fights as well. I mean, it's a
different energy.
Yeah,
it's a different energy.
It is. It's a little different for sure. Yeah, without a doubt. There's a girl that was fighting for UFC. It was a UFC fight, and it was two ladies, both really tall, and obviously females are a little bit more flexible than guys overall, right? Generally, and they were in this weird pretzel-like thing, and Mr. K, my coach, and I are looking at each other like, I have no idea who this is. They don't even know what they're doing. It was the funniest thing. They had 10 seconds left, but their legs are together and their arms are twisted, and someone's doing a half split. I was like, man, only in a female fight would you see some weird contortion type thing going on in the last 10 seconds. It was pretty good.
It's one of these things. It's like
And then you have to deal with the other side of it too. At least that was like I guess a perv's dream, right? Because it's now like the most talked about, like what you were talking about, like for the better part of like a week, it was the most talked about thing. I'm like, really, we're still on this?
Yeah, you can get creepers. It's all good. It's part of the game.
No, if I remember, did like Jessica Rose Clark and Beck Hyatt did a podcast where they were just like literally talking about like exposing their DMs of just all these weird people that like through MMA social media that just kind of with the weird messages.
The creepers do come.
All right, so, but in a serious sense though, because like we obviously there's always going to be those creepers, and we can make fun of those situations for what they are. But I would say in general, like, it has to feel good to know that like women, and fighting and their impact and their role and their place in combat sports, like they've got a lot of respect from everybody around it. Like they're viewed as these legitimate badasses. Where maybe you go back 30 years and you talk about the idea of
it was rough, man. People don't understand. Like if you weren't around for the beginning of
like in a serious badass way, now that's got to feel great to be the pioneers of like that side of like the women's MMA movement, to know like, hey, we're legitimate badasses and we get that respect now.
I would have to say it's kind of the second coming to, like, if you weren't around for the beginning part of what women's MMA was, you don't know how rough it was both media wise and both dealing with the sport in general. Like Elise is coming into a time where it's kind of well substantiated. You guys kind of have a where you're more catered to now than you probably were 5 years ago, because more people kind of tend in when you have female fights on the card because of how they bring it, because of the energy they bring to the stage, to the card, etc. You really don't understand if you weren't there before before women's MMA kind of made that transition into mainstream MMA. It was a niche. It was a niche. I mean, it really was. People don't understand where just that part of mixed martial arts have come over the past 5 to 10 years.
Yeah, so, Gina Carano was one of the ladies that started it.
Oh man, it's just one of those things where I think that's missed out on.
Yeah, she was there, but again, I think in terms of female fights, and at least personally with me, is I know that it's a show every time, and I think, as I'm not going to speak for every female, but I think there is a little bit of a chipped shoulder where you go into fights and that like you're not there to I'm going to use a bad word. I'm not going to. It's a radio, but you're not there to like mess around.
Listen. We had Sheena Star on here about a month ago, and I swear she probably used up our month's worth of F-bomb drops. So
we had to go off the air for 3 weeks. She broke it. She used them all up.
I'll keep you on the radio, but you don't like mess around and go easy for it. You're definitely like, I go into the cage every time for a finish, and if I don't get a finish, like these last 2 decisions, I get out and I'm like, damn, I came so close in that 4th round this last fight. So I think the chip on the shoulder helps a little bit as well in terms of building the divisions, and what the females lack, because you look at a men's record going into the UFC and they have 10 to 15 fights, right? Lucky people, maybe they're 7-0 and they come in with 7 fights. You look at a female going into the UFC and it's a lot of times it's like 4-0 or 5-3. A lot of them have less than 10, and it's just because men's MMA has been there for so long and there's such a big base of building that they start at 16 and they already know that they want to be a UFC fighter or whatever it is. So what ladies lack in technical knowledge, I would say that we definitely bring in terms of heart and making those entertaining. So we're doing what we can.
If you ask me, is Paige Van Zandt's entertainment value is what got her that big contract from bare knuckle boxing, and she probably had I would say significantly less contracts from whatever would have been MMA, and also thinking about that, that's obviously part of that is also promotional stuff, not just fights in general.
But honestly,
at the end of the day,
like the best way to go about it. That's the best. But
also at the end of the day, that doesn't happen if you didn't have these people that kind of built those roles for people. But you, like I said, you guys have a platform and you have the chance to kind of see this opportunity. It's all up to, I guess, what the people feel about you. The people tell you how much they love you, right?
Absolutely. Yeah. No, no, but honestly, that's like the best way, right? If I can do promotions and make a living off of that, and then every so often have a fight just to stay in the game, like, again, I want to get punched in the face as least possible. So if it means that I don't need to do that as much, that's fine. I do love training, and I'm always willing to throw down, but eventually I'll have to stop, or I'll be, told that I should stop. So I'm trying to be smart. I'm trying to make the smart play.
You're the person that doesn't want to be told. You want to know when it's time,
Yes,
right?
absolutely. Yes. If I start having losses where my nose is broken, I can't remember my name, and I'm unconscious for 5 minutes laying on the canvas, and I probably should have left a few fights before that. So yeah, the plan is to take every opportunity.
Some people just hit that hard. I don't know what to tell you. I mean, you get popped sometimes. You get fouled.
Yeah, well, yeah, that's why head movement is very important as well.
That's why you can't skip Boxing Day, people. You can't skip Boxing Day.
I know I've been knocked out. Like, I know I've been knocked out cold twice in my life. I got kneed in the head twice playing sports. And like, I can remember the feeling of just like how out of it you are. Like, I can't imagine the idea of like that could end up being like your fate. Like how many times do you think a fighter in training and a fight, whatever, like how often have you been knocked out before you're like, dude, I'm out of it. Like, that's gotta be
we say that, but we say that, you look at these top level prize fighters who've been knocked out 5 to 10 times, and we talk about the damage that we've seen that it does to some of these athletes who hang around too long, and it's one of the things we worry about. That's why there's athletic commissions, that's why there's rules, that's why there's sanctioning bodies and all that. We have to have the stuff in place to make sure to protect the fighters from themselves, but not just from the promoters as well. People tend to forget that.
Yeah, I mean, I've been lucky. I have not been knocked out unconscious. I have sparred with people that are a little bit bigger than me, so there are times where they sit on a punch and they maybe don't mean to hit you really hard, but they make that neck snap back fast enough to where your legs just give out. So I probably had that happen 3 or 4 times, but honestly, knock on wood, all of my concussions have been from water polo. So I have not gotten concussion at all from mixed martial arts, MMA, Taekwondo.
I would rather get knocked. Get knocked around where I feel like I'm on roller skates than be light as a better feather, stiff as a board.
Yeah. So I've been fortunate. Yeah.
Now, before we get ready to kind of wrap this thing up, obviously, we were talking about all kinds of sports on here. Do you have anything that you like to enjoy outside of the MMA world?
So I am always good for a good game. I will watch football because it's on, especially now in the season.
You're from Jersey, so where does your allegiance lie? Does it fall here? The Philly area? Are you a Giants fan, Jets fan? Are you out of the area? Where's your level?
We all suck this year, so don't worry about us having to make fun of you. Like, we're all in the same boat.
No, it's a good story. So my dad's favorite team is the Dallas Cowboys. So I'm watching. This is probably 6 years ago. All right, chill out. 6 years ago, right? So he's like, you gotta find your own team. You gotta pick your own team, right? So back then, I think it might have been even longer than 6 years ago. I picked the Jaguars. So that's my team. Okay, I think they went 1-13. I don't even know who they played. I never watched them play, but that's my team. So when they make it big, I'm a diehard fan. I don't want to be anybody that likes to,
So
mix.
Was it the fact that it was because they were new, they were expansion team? Like, how did that come about?
No, literally, they were the worst team. I knew nothing about them. I can't even tell you who the quarterback is right now for them. So the Jaguars.
I don't even think the Jaguars organization could tell you who the quarterback is for them right now.
So that's technically my team, but I'll watch any good game. Like the Super Bowl, I always watch. Baseball, I haven't watched so often, but I like a good competition. So that's what I'll say about that. But right now, it's been NFL. I have not watched my team, the Jaguars, though. I don't even think they're on cable network. So.
You can always. I guarantee you can always find it on YouTube or something like that. There's always places you can.
Your organization's looking up.
Too much effort, really.
You guys are going to have the top pick. You're going to get Trevor Lawrence, and you know what? Your organization could be on the up and up. In 5 years, we could be looking at the Jaguars, and as Eagles fans are just shaking our head like, oh God, like this is what it's come to. The Jaguars are this much better than us. Like,
So the one thing I will say about the Eagles though is I was overseas when they ended up winning the Super Bowl, right? When they went crazy with the replacement quarterback, what was his name?
Nick Foles.
Yes.
yeah,
So
we
that
try not to say
was
it.
amazing to watch. That was amazing. So because we were doing 12-hour shifts over there, and we ended up doing a little not a bet. It was more of like a bracket type thing, like seeing who would win, and yeah, my chief warrant officer was a huge Eagles fan, so I was talking smack on him the whole time. But they had a great season that season.
And look how far we've fallen.
I'm a Jaguars fan, so let's.
She's
You
like,
can
at
go a
least you
little
won
further.
something.
Listen. Any Eagles fan who's old enough, we've been there with you. We've seen it all. You get so close to getting some situations, and then you just go through years and years of just
Drought.
bad play.
The Eagles are like that
bad-
fighter. The Eagles are like that fighter that, the Eagles won the Super Bowl and everybody got way too much confidence and got their ego way too big and got way too giddy about it. They're like the fighter that wins a couple fights and knocks somebody out or wins his first championship and tries to act, way too big and bad and gets,
And then they need to lose a
knocked
few
back
to
down
really get back.
real quick. That's what's happened with us. Somebody kicked our ass after we started acting all big and bad and thinking we were hot shit, and they were like, nope, no, you're not. And it put us in our place real quick.
Well,
So actually, we got one from you. The question from the chat. They want to know if you remember Byron Leftwich.
Oh, God.
no,
Yeah, he was the quarterback at the time.
for the Jaguars.
I think he was.
No, sorry, Ted. I don't know.
I think that was
15
like
years ago.
early 2010s, wasn't it?
I was
Yeah.
definitely a fan then. I was definitely a Jaguars fan at that point. But no, I have not watched a single game that they played. But I'm still rooting for them right here. They've got my heart.
All right. Well, as we get ready to wrap this one, Elise, what we typically do is throw the proverbial microphone over you. Anyone you'd like to thank, teammates, shoot out your sponsors, social media sites, and any charities you're working with, anything like that. The time is yours.
Sure. So CFFC, obviously, great organization. John Canabay, my coach. Carnicella, MMA, Kickside MMA. That's it. I mean, I'm training still, but I'm in the back burner a little bit until we get another contract signed. So yeah, just moving my way.
Absolutely, keep grinding there, and we'll definitely be keeping an eye out for when you get something else lined up there, and hopefully you get to defend that title against an actual strawweight there, and
We'll see. Yeah.
So we'll see how that goes, and continue to kind of build that fight up, and hopefully you get the shot to go to that 3-letter promotion.
Yeah, we'll see. Again, crossing our fingers. Always is only as good as that next fight. So that's going to be the focus here.
And don't forget to get on that social media platform and start making some noise there too. That's probably the one thing I think some fighters don't really get sometimes. It's just, even if you got like your management to jump on them and just to do something, it means something to these promotions like people don't understand.
Yeah, no, I'm learning. My agent is on me right now about making sure that I make some Instagram posts and Facebook posts. So that'll be like my homework every day. So
well, no, especially when days you're training, like people tend to forget like how I guess like combat sports works in that aspect. So the word of mouth of social media is kind of where you live and die, right? Yeah, that's where you guys live and die from. That's how you make your money, your fame, so to speak. So definitely make sure you guys are checking her out there as well.
That's all I got.
That's all you got? All right. Well, great to have you on. Looking forward to having you on in the future. Appreciate your time, Elise, and we'll see you around, all right?
Sounds good. Thank you very much, everybody.
You have a good one. All right. That was our guest for this afternoon. That was Elise Reed, and
definitely fun one. I forgot that she was also a service member. Forgot to talk to her about that. Didn't remember it till the end. She mentioned the pool, but we still got some basketball to talk about.
Basketball.
Yeah,
Ben Simmons
now
is hitting threes. Dwight Howard's apparently his new shooting coach.
Well, no, from what I'm told, isn't Sam Cassell also working a lot with Ben with that?
Sam Cassell's working. Well, yeah, I mean, I don't know. I think we all know. Like, what's funny is I think a lot of us sat here with the idea we all know Ben can shoot the three. Like, the guy's a phenomenal basketball player. Like, of course he can shoot the fucking three. He just gotta want to shoot the three. Gotta actually go out there and do it. Not that he can't do it. Not that he doesn't know how to do it. Not that he can't make threes consistently. He just, whatever reason, doesn't want to shoot the three ball and wants to be stubborn enough to go play basketball the way, however the hell he wants to play it.
He likes to go to the rim. He likes to go to the rim.
That can happen when you're young and you don't have somebody that is pushing you in the way that you need to be pushed, right? I love the saying my older brother told me a long, long time ago, right? Some people need to be, some people need a pat on the back. Some people need a kick in the ass. And some people need a pat on the back and a kick in the ass at the same time. You've got to find out who that person is and what motivates them. But those are the three types of motivation. Some need a pat on the back, some need a kick in the ass, some need a kick in the ass and a pat on the back at the same time. And that's just how it is. And I think for Ben Simmons, he's somebody that clearly needs a little bit of a kick in the ass every once in a while.
Well, I mean, I think the one thing
in the back of the head and tell him to wake up, and Brett Brown just wasn't doing that. It seems like Doc Rivers and Sam Cassell, whatever they're doing, whether they're giving him that kick in the ass, whatever, they've found a way to motivate him to try to become a better basketball player or the best player he can become. And you're even seeing it early on in the year. And I think those differences, the willingness to shoot the three and little things like that.
Yeah, but I think what you gotta really look forward to and what's going on right now is that what they're doing, how they're winning, isn't the same way that they were winning, last year or a couple seasons ago. We've seen them win at least two, three different ways already, and we're getting production from other guys. And the one you have to tip your cap to is Tobias has shown up so far. It's
Which
still
was
early.
Something that we all said he played his career year, his best year came under Doc Rivers in LA, right? And that was one thing we were hoping. Even if he's not the guy he was in LA, hell, can Doc at least get something out of this guy to make him look like somebody that's at least somewhat worth the money that we gave him and the contract that we gave him? So far, so good.
And yeah, he's looked pretty good so far. And obviously Joe already having a maintenance day. Joe's already kind of having an injury scare. I'll continue to say this, and I'll continue to say it throughout the year. This team will go just about as far as Joel Embiid will take them.
You think?
Depends on his health and all that.
Because, see, I'll play some devil's advocate here.
You put Ben on Hayard or Melo tonight.
You put Ben on the other team's best scorer every single game.
I mean,
Who's their best scorer?
You looked at Ben's numbers and what he's doing, and I think you can't take that away from what his defense is doing for this team. And it's one of the reasons why I think Doc and Morey were like, we're not letting this guy go, because what he does on the other side of the floor, you can't re-add that with somebody else. I'm sorry.
And it's not even just the other side of the floor. Like, listen, I get it. The people that are frustrated by, you watch them pass up a wide open jumper, a wide open jumper to go watch. Yeah, I get it. I'm frustrated about you. You're like, pull the trigger. What's wrong with you? But you can, you want to sit here and be short-minded, close-minded. The idea that the guy take out the jump shooting. We don't know. Maybe he can be a great jump shooter. He just doesn't. We know for a fact the guy doesn't take enough jump shots for us to be able to sit here and say he's a good jump shooter, right? He just doesn't take enough. He doesn't do it enough for you to say, hey, he can do it. But we know he's an elite facilitator. We know he's an elite rebounder. We know he's an elite defender. And for a guy that doesn't shoot the fucking basketball, hell, the average 18 points a game for your career is a guy that doesn't shoot the basketball. I'll tell you what, I can't remember another guy that had a reputation for being a poor jump shooter, or a guy that didn't shoot the basketball and still averaged close to 20 points a game. So I think a lot of it just stems from the frustration of when you watch him pass up and you're like, damn, if he could just be a guy that knocked down that jump shot, 3 out of 5 times, he'd score 25 to 30 a game, and it'd be hard to say that he's not in the conversation for the best player in basketball. But can you really argue with a guy that averages 18, 8, and 8 for his career? I mean, and then plays elite defense on top of it, is an all-league defender? Like, that's what I don't understand about these people that want to rip a guy in Ben Simmons who's still young. But I get all the frustrating things that come with it. If you think that he can't grow, okay, I guess then you've just decided that, in your opinion, nobody's going to be able to, fully tap into the potential that he has. I'm not that guy. I don't believe that. I feel like the right coach and the right combination of coaches gets that out of him, because I just don't believe that people that play at this
Ted,
level.
I'm with you. I've already said that
I
I think I'm with Ted here. I already kind of said I think the Sixers are going to be walking away with one player will be walking away with at least a postseason award this year. And if a guy wins Defensive Player of the Year and then also averages 18 points a game, I mean, usually, you like, how are you going to sit there and say that guy's not a complete, like one of the best complete all-around players in basketball? Of course he is. Like, usually the guys that are winning Defensive Player of the Year is like Patrick Beverley, right? Who's like, he couldn't, he's not going to score in any way, shape, or form. Forget about jump shooting. Like, I think when people talk about the Simmons jump shot, what frustrates me about it is they act like he doesn't score in other ways. They act like there's not other things he does in order to be able to produce offense. But I think it was being compounded by the fact that, we're not getting what we need out of JoJo, and then Tobias is doing this, and we didn't have the right pieces in other parts.
At this point,
it wasn't just a Joel Embiid problem. It was we didn't have enough depth on this team. We didn't have a bench. We didn't have anything after your top 3. There was nothing there. It was nothing. It was a bunch of recycling cans.
Okay, so
we have adjusted to the point where you have that with young talent, with Maxey, Thibault. You're getting some of these guys where you can have these.
Seth Curry's providing phenomenal depth and off to a great start as far as being able to shoot the basketball.
And like I said, it's just early. I don't want to get too far into it, but and obviously we're gonna have to get into this game with the Hornets. Like, how do you think it's another Sixers win? Is it another emphatic win? Is it a close game? Is it?
I don't. I mean, the Hornets are young and they got some talent. I mean, I look at the Sixers and it's like, for me, this is like, the first half of this year is going to be about feeling a lot of things out and adjusting and adapting to everything that is new. Doc Rivers being able to figure out just how talented everybody is and how to use everybody correctly, and then the team adjusting to his style as a coach and what the assistants and all that are going to be. But I look at the team as a whole and I say, like, this is like a team that matches up with any team in basketball. Line up against the Lakers, they can play them for a full 48 minutes and stand with them toe to toe. Line them up against any team in the Eastern Conference, same deal. Line them up against the Bucks. That's a hell of a basketball game. I want to watch that one. I'll pay money to see it. How much are tickets to that game? I want to go sit in the front row. Like, I look at this Sixers team. I think the only thing that was missing from this Sixers team was proper leadership. It was almost like you had one of the most talented rosters. At least maybe the depth wasn't quite what it is now, but Embiid, Simmons. Like, when you looked at the really, really good players on this team, you're like, you can't look at the talent and be mad on this team. What made you mad on this team was looking at the talent and feeling like, you weren't getting the most out of them, which just eventually led to say, okay, you have no choice. Brett Brown's got to go. I think we ripped Brett Brown a lot, but I don't know if we were like. Brett Brown was incompetent. It's like he's a high school coach compared to Doc Rivers being, an all league, an all NBA coach. It's a night and day difference. It's rec league as opposed to Pro Bowl. That's almost how bad Brett Brown looks to me at times now. Like, Doc Rivers is getting this out of these guys, and like you didn't look like you knew your elbows from your ass on the sidelines at times. I was ready for you to pour water on the court, like you were Jason Garrett.
Look, all he wanted to do was clap. Clap.
The Jason Garrett of basketball.
All right, man. But I'm looking at a good game from Joe here. 25, 5, and 10 would be fine with me.
Are you concerned about Joe? Like if we're asking, who are you more concerned about long term, Simmons or Joel Embiid?
This has been an issue with him all the time. But I think what I like is what you're seeing him in the game.
You're not seeing him get being the last guy down the court half the time like you used to seeing. Yes, you're going to have concerns with being banged up, but it's only 56 games this season.
I just look at it and I feel like if I'm looking at the two of them, and I think Embiid's a great player, obviously, but we've all sat here for years and said, well, if you could just get the most out of Joel Embiid, he could be the best big man in basketball. That's the best big man in basketball right there. And I also think that's also that conversation. Like
you got Jordan Howard in there, and he's going to be a guy holding Joe accountable and is going to push him every day. Hating it. You think Al Horford was pushing him? Really?
No, of course not.
Okay,
course, but I guess that's what I'm asking. So you think?
But I think it's also respect thing. It's also respect. I don't think he didn't have any respect for a guy like Al, and there's never been anyone there that he's kind of had that kind of guy he looked up to do that.
Who can grow?
I think that Jordan Howard, we could say he's at a point in his career.
Dwight Howard.
Yeah, that's it. Why did I say that? Anyways. Dwight Howard, Jordan Howard.
Yeah.
That's why because he's playing. He's going to be one of the playing instead of Miles.
Yeah, he's going to be the starting running back tomorrow. Look at that. It's all above. We bench Miles Sanders. You spent all this time on the practice squad. Go carry the ball 30 times tomorrow.
But no, Dwight Howard is a guy that we definitely not his equal anymore as far as talent on the floor. But he's definitely somebody that holds his respect and somebody who can push.
Sure. But I guess the question I was trying to ask you was, we've looked at both Ben and Joel for years and said you can still get more out of both of them. Like they haven't peaked yet as players. So you can still get more out of them.
And I agree that neither one of them has peaked yet. I agree.
But,
I don't think.
And maybe they haven't.
I still think if we've saying anything, I don't think we've scratched the surface with Ben yet. Where we've almost seen just about everything we're going to see out of Joe.
Okay, see that I feel like we're on the same page there. Like I feel like Ben still has the ability to just blow up as a player, and all of a sudden he's a guy that was scoring 25, 26, 27 a game to go along with everything else he does. Like he can grow like that as a player, in my opinion. So I feel like the right coaches that motivate him, you can get that out of him. Well, I feel like we've seen what Embiid can be, and I just don't know if he's ever going to be anything more than he is now. I just like to see him do it a little bit more consistently.
And I think that's a habit problem. Anthony, I don't think that's a Joel problem. I think he's so used to that being the way he has to do things that's something over the course of the year we're going to see Doc break him down.
Sure.
I don't want to see him.
And that needs to happen.
I mean, once the ball comes,
he can be the guy that plays inside.
Once the ball comes up the court and they set, he shouldn't move past the free throw line unless they're doing things to circle to kind of keep everything moving. Other than that, Joel should not see the 3-point line under any circumstance.
If they can get him to play the game like he's Shaquille O'Neal, or like he's Akeem Olajuwon and try to dominate on the low block, try to dominate people inside, you're going to see, the guy that we've always wished we could have in Joel Embiid. But I'm with Anthony here. I mean, and I see what you're saying, Steven, that you think that's more of a habit and it'll change throughout the year. I don't know if it will. Like, I'm starting to think that's just Joel Embiid. Like, Joel does what he wants to do. He kind of says what he wants to say, and he's kind of a free spirit, and we love it. We love the fact that the kid isn't afraid to show who he is from the personality side of it, right? But I think I am a little bit concerned about the idea of, dude, you could be Hakeem Olajuwon, Shaquille O'Neal type of level of dominance on the inside against certain big men in this league. Like, this isn't a big man dominated league the way it was when Shaq and Hakeem played, right? And they had to go play against the Patrick Ewings of the world every single night. And there was a lot of other really, really dominant big men. You've got Embiid, you've got Giannis, you've got Anthony Davis. Like, even Karl Anthony Towns is a guy that we look at. We're like, oh, yeah, you like that guy, but you don't really consider him a dominant big man, right? Like, Embiid has the ability, if he wanted to like, dominate that position, like, in today's NBA, probably the way that nobody else can. And I just haven't seen the willingness, I guess, from him to say, yeah, I'm going to go do that. Like, if you knew you were capable of doing that, why would you stand at the 3-point line at all? Why does somebody have to motivate you to get down on the low block and beat and bang and be that guy?
I don't know if you see the time here, but remember we're up against it because we got
Yeah,
a lot of programming going on tonight. I believe, we're also have Spit and Fire with Rachel Blaze, I believe. In This Very Ring is tonight. And also, just wanted to get it out there. Obviously, we're still going to be doing some giveaways when our respective social media accounts hits the Facebook hits 50K, when YouTube hits 4K. I actually dropped off a little care package to Thomas last week, so we're going to be he's going to be has some things to give away to you guys over the next year. I'm going to be still working on some things, and like I said, I still got some things laying around for you guys. I still got this Vinny Pass signed glove I'm going to be giving away. So What?
Vinny, what a fraud. Just trying to mess with our man. One of my favorite, probably one of my favorite interviews so far that we've done since we've brought people on to this show.
Yeah, we're going to be having some fun. Obviously, make sure you guys are keeping locked in. Make sure you're subscribed, on Facebook, YouTube, and all the social media platforms for A2D, for the weekly roundup, and all that. We'll be back next week. Gonna have a guest in the first hour this following. But other than that, I'm Steve. He's Zach. We'll see you guys next week. You guys have a good one.